Hmm. What exists close to water? I know. Modular reeds and cattails. Hey, my name is Leif. Welcome to my YouTube channel called Devs and Dice. Today I'm going to walk you through the process on how I created some reeds and cattails to complement my modular river tiles. So let's get to it. Okay, so first off, let's have a look at my modular river tiles that I did in the last video. Now, the good thing is that I can put some of these rocks that I also did on top of them, and I can put these modular bushes at the sides. But I was really missing those sort of reeds and tall grass. I wanted to do cattails. So I started out with just taking an old sort of blister pack from some tufts from Army Painter and just cut up that transparent thin plastic into different sort of shapes of, well, basically bases that I was going to use going forward. Now I made them in this elongated shape here, and I did about 6 of them, which I thought would be good enough. Now, starting on the crafting of those cattails, I decided to go with the thinnest steel wire that I had, and I cut, I think, about 30 or so of these, and I cut them in about 2.5 to 3 inches tall. I knew that I wanted to make these tall enough to cover a full-size mini so that I would have some cover around the riverbanks. And also, it is generally better to cut them a little bit longer because it's easier to shorten them up than it is to add. Now, for that, characteristic cattail shape, I decided to use some masking tape, and here comes inspiration from a weird direction. I was actually looking at a YouTube channel called Alex, a French guy who cooks different, dishes, and among these he was cooking or showing how to cook croissant. And for me, that was where this inspiration came from, because this is how croissants look like, well, ish in the shape once you sort of roll them out. So I used this and cut them into these sort of almost triangular shapes, because I knew that if I started with rolling the widest part and then rolled it over the wire, it would look something like that, which was, for me at least, something cattail-like. Now I did, like I said, about 30 of these, and I just put them in some XPS foam just to have them standing. One thing that I bought a while back was latex rubber, and folks, this smells very bad. It smells of ammonia or something. But the idea was here that I would simply dip it into this latex and let it dry. This thing sets for, I think it is within half an hour, so it works quite quickly. And I wasn't sure, and of course previous to this I had actually done one test piece, so at this point I was somewhat sure of the results. Now, a while back, I did an order at an animal shop, and I think these are plastic sort of grass-looking weeds that are, I guess, made for, I would guess, the aquarium. Now, I liked the shape of these, but there was one problem. For me, it wasn't so much the height or the length, but actually the width of these leaves. They were way too wide. Now, the way I solved this was pretty much to use my Fiskars scissors and just sort of try to position them in the middle of the blades and just cut them in half. That, at least in my head, made the scale a little bit more accepting. Now, be very careful when you do this. It was quite, scary being so close to the blades with your fingers, and these Fiskars blades are super sharp. Here is what all of the cattails look like once that latex has dried. It will go transparent. And just to make sure that I get a good bond, I brushed on some brush-on primer from Army Painter. Now this one comes in gray, which will work fine because we're going to make these quite stark green, I would say, at least the stem of them. Now I'm gonna start with snake scales as a sort of base coat, and I didn't really mind at this point. I just, you know, smacked it all over, you know, the entire thing. This is just a base coat just to make the you know, the second coat of green pop a little bit more. So this was again factory work, doing that and then making sure everything dried. And once everything had dried, I came in with jungle green, which is a much more sort of brighter, you know, green. And once that had dried, I came in with oak brown, and here I am specifically targeting the actual sort of cattail and upwards, if you will. And you can see I'm just using a regular flat hobby brush, because you don't really need to go into detail at this point. And there you go. There they are, all of them, all 30 or so. Now after this, I'm gonna come in with some khaki color from Vallejo, and I'm just gonna sort of color that tip that in the images that I found seemed to be more khaki colored. And again, this is a simplification. I'm not looking for absolute realism, but there you go. There they are, all of them. A little bit of artsy-fartsy photos. I'm trying to expand my visual storytelling a little bit. But yeah, at this point I was somewhat happy with them, and now came the painstaking task of gluing all of these, you know, leaves or blades of grass onto each and every one of these. Now I did before this try super glue. The problem with super glue is that it sets too slow, and I couldn't use an activator because then usually you get sort of a color, you know, of white. So I went with hot glue, which actually works pretty good, because if you use your sort of nozzle on the hot glue, you can actually heat it up again, so you can like shape it. And this is a low temperature hot glue gun that I'm working with. Now, as you can see, I did also clumps of these. I did individual ones. I did, you know, ones with 2, ones with 3, ones with 4 even. And once everything had, you know, set, I snipped off the bottom of them, and I added a healthy dab of hot glue, and then I simply placed it on the base. And I ended up with 6 of these, and I really wanted them to be bunched up together. Now, I'm gonna use some Vallejo thick mud to define a ground cover. Now, interesting fact about this one, I've had this Vallejo mud for quite some time, and it actually dried out on me, but I did a little bit of an experiment, and I added quite a lot of water, and then I resealed it, and wouldn't you know it, it actually, in like a majority of the mud, rehydrated. So I got to use it, which is good news, because the less waste, the better. And here they are, and at this point I'm just gonna let these firm up or dry up completely before we go on to the next stage, which is to add some flocking to that base. You can see that now the mud has dried completely, and if you look underneath you can see that, yeah, it's transparent. Now I was going to use 2 types of longer weed for this, and also one additional bonus with this is that the mud actually creates some weight on the base, so these won't be prone to sort of falling over or tipping over. Here I'm just coming in with some white PVA glue, and now I'm gonna use my my poor little static grass applicator. And as usual, I can't really, you know, get in where I want to get in, so I had to, you know, add a little bit of manual, you know, touches to the grass. And I think it's time to look at the final result. Alright, good folks. So my goal with this was really to create some modular cover that could exist, alongside the riverbank. And for that I went with the reeds and cattails. So what did you think about the build? Feel free to tell me in the comment section down below. And if you like these videos, then please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing this with any friends that might find these hobby videos interesting. Alright folks, with that, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I want to wish you an awesome day. Now I need to get cracking on the next build. It might be a big one. Stay safe folks, and I will see you in the next video.